Good morning, Karen.
Good morning, Ron. I am so excited for our topic today that's perplexing to me, and that topic is about breakthroughs. I was recently at a coaching conference or workshop, and so many people were having breakthroughs, just total shifts in relationship and blocks they were having. And I think that one of the real factors in that breakthrough was the fact that the leaders of this workshop had set a really open space to be vulnerable and for all of us to be authentic and real in our conversations. And it seemed like there was a relationship, but I'm just wondering, in your experience, what your thoughts are about that idea of vulnerability and how it contributes to the shifts that we want in our lives.
Oh, well, I love the topic. I love vulnerability. I'm right with you on this one, that there's seemingly something magical, and maybe that's what we're going to explore, about when there is that space, whether it's a coaching or a workshop or a therapy session. There's something really magical about that space where it's okay to be who we are and where we are, which is kind of my shorthand for it. The things I sometimes tell people I'm working with is, look, just be here as you are, and let's work with it, because you couldn't be anywhere else. And it's almost like it gives people permission to tell the truth, would be my starting thought. Does that seem to jive with what you saw in the sessions you were watching?
Definitely, and I think your point about making it okay to be ourselves, because I think so often we walk around in the world with a mask on, afraid of being judged or trying to live up to some unknown person's expectations. and so if it's key to give ourselves permission to tell the truth and to be where we are, what do you think contributes to that kind of environment or that kind of acceptance?
Well, I was just thinking back to a conversation I had with a client, a coaching client. This is just only a little over a week ago. I'll call her Carissa. And Carissa commented, this was really neat feedback, because she had been really covering some good ground, and she'd never been able to do it before. And what she said was, it was pretty simple, and of course with the approach of Thanksgiving, it kind of makes sense, I guess. But she said, I am so thankful that you have made it okay for me to be just where I am. Because all my life I have tried to be somewhere else because I was afraid. And you make it okay for me to be exactly where I am. And so, I mean, part of that is, good ground rules. And there's all kinds of things we can do. But the honest truth, Karen, seems to be that if we offer it to others, if we offer that kind of vulnerability, that kind of authenticity, it seems to give, well, it models and seems to give permission to the other party to do likewise, if they're able. And so, as much as I love ground rules and, ways of working and values and all that, I'm just not sure there's any substitute for us leading with vulnerability and authenticity, that seems like the magic space to me. How about you?
So we have to be willing to go first ourselves as coaches or as friends or mentors or, whomever is seeking to open this space. I agree with that. I'm wondering how someone might do this for themselves, though. So not in a coaching environment, but how do we invite people to create that space for themselves, to have that kind of acceptance of themselves?
Well, Karen, okay, so you're a master coach, right? And so let me tell you how I experienced that with you. One of the reasons we have played so well together is you do two things that I'm very, very aware of, even as we're talking here today. One is I can feel your non-judgment. I literally can feel that you don't really have an opinion about, well, maybe you do, but it's so well managed that you're coming at me without any indication of judgment, opinion, condemnation, any of that. And the other is that you are very, very good about call it an approach to curiosity. You ask good questions, you're clearly listening, and so there's this thing you do that you do so well, which is to be really inquisitive, curious, open, and frankly, those two things, whether you're a coach or a mentor or a leader or whatever, those two things we can all nurture in ourselves. And so if you're a demonstration of what we're talking about, if that's fair, which I think it is, then we can offer that to everyone, both of those two pieces, to drop your judgments, do anything you can to drop your judgments, and then demonstrate an openness and willingness and curiosity, because I think those work really well. They're like what you do is you kind of create a soup for people to swim in. That's a terrible metaphor, but you create an ambiance for people to be in, and any one of us can practice nurturing that with ourselves, can't we?
I totally agree. And I don't know, I like the soup metaphor, because when you think about it, soup is warm. And you talked about, I love the word that you use, nurturing. I mean, that's what we're talking about, is nurturing ourselves or nurturing others to create that nice, safe space. I've heard it framed as creating a container. And in the masteries, the coaching framework that I often work with, the first skill in that is creating an environment of trust. And so if we're not feeling safe, if we're concerned with the judgment or concerned with someone having an agenda or ourselves having an agenda, then we can't be in that place that's safe and nurturing. So I kind of, to your non-judgment, add this idea of creating an environment of trust where it is safe to be you, it is safe to share openly and honestly and that sort of thing. So sort of the absence of fear, I think, is required for that non-judgment.
So that container is such a great word. I also was thinking of when you raise the stakes on that a little bit, we can create crucibles, right? Mm-hmm. Places in which, with a little bit of extra care, we can increase the temperature of the soup using that, what I thought was a bad analogy, but you actually liked. And yeah, that there's this idea. If you can imagine it, there's this visual that comes with that of creating and holding a space in which people feel safe and protected. Isn't that? I mean, that like creates a powerful visual in my mind for what it is we're trying to create for others, right? Is that making sense?
Yep. Because to be vulnerable and to create I have a belief that in order for us to truly change, it has to be safe to change. We say, I want to lose weight, I want to have a better career, I want to have that relationship I've always dreamed of, and yet because we don't have it at some level, it must not be safe, and so, or we don't see our way to have it. And so what you're describing, Ron, is this place that makes it okay to be ourselves, which makes it okay to imagine and imagine ourselves in our goals so that we can have that breakthrough in us that makes the goal possible.
So boy, a couple thoughts just race into my mind. The first is, and this is just an oblique reference, Maslow's hierarchy of needs says that if safety is threatened, all higher functioning fall away. That safety is paramount. And so if you're going to be effective with others, creating the safety you're describing is job one. But the place that I really went with this was, the world would love to call it personal accountability, although I don't like that language personally. But this idea that I've got to do this with me first. I have got to deal with my own tendencies towards judgment, my own tendencies toward closed-mindedness, my own tendencies for, being too caught up in myself at the expense of listening well to the other. And so I can't offer what I don't have yet for myself. So for me, as you were describing that, it's a huge call to clean up our own inner baggage or the blocks in our own eye, or because I can't give it if I haven't got it. And so it has to start at home with me, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So that begs the question: how have you? I mean, if you could summarize that, it's like talk about your whole life as a master coach or what led up to it. What made all the difference for you? How did you get your own baggage cleaned up enough to be able to hold a space?
Well, that has been a long process. I would say there's it takes courage, as you've talked about, so setting those crucibles and recognizing that we have to be willing, recognizing that the dings and the bumps and the hurts of being vulnerable and open and honest with ourselves are worth it. That's the first thing. So, it's if you're cocooned up and keeping yourself too safe, yes, you're safe, but then you're not growing. The other thing that popped into my mind as you were speaking, and as I'm thinking about this idea of vulnerability for the sake of personal growth too, is appreciating yourself. And I think that challenge of low self-esteem can often get in the way of this, and that's of course self-judgment. Low self-esteem is self-judgment. Along those lines, though, to help people with that shift is truly appreciating yourself. And I think as coaches, that's one of the things that we do, is to help draw out of people something they can appreciate about themselves, the strengths that they have, recognizing the great accomplishments they've already experienced, already created for themselves, and then to use that as the backdrop, to add that to the soup, if we're staying with our analogy, add that to the soup so we recognize that's what we're moving forward with, is that appreciation of ourselves, not just the judgments of ourselves. What are your thoughts about that?
I totally agree with what you've described and used. And I think back now, as I think about what has been most instrumental in helping me to be safe enough to create a safe space, I go back to this idea of telling the truth. It seems like the thing that has made all the difference in the world for me, and it's related to courage, just as you described it, has been the ability to tell the truth about myself, about really who I am, where I am, what's going on. And fortunately, I have been, great time for acknowledgement here. I've been in the hands of people who made it possible for me to do that. So it's sort of like they passed safety on to me, which made it okay for me to be safe, practice nurturing, which in turn now passes on through me. So there doesn't seem to be any substitute in my mind for linking off this courage idea and just saying, hey, look, here's what's going on with me. And if I'm in a space with people where they will permit that to be okay, it just makes it easier and easier for me to tell my own truths and to grow and develop as a result. How's that sound?
I like that. And I was thinking about just that very act of telling the truth allows us to drop the mask. And when I think about the breakthroughs that people had at this workshop I was in, the breakthrough is never adding anything, being more impressive or more of anything. It was actually less and more real. So, for example, one of the guys shared that he was carrying around this mask that he had to be cool. He's kind of a surfer dude and had to be cool, and that if there was anything, as he put it, dorky about himself, that interfered with his coolness. And he had this breakthrough, and he stood up, and he had the most amazing smile that I had never seen before with him. And he shared his experience, and then said, and he had his hat on, like his ball cap on backwards and kind of askew, and he said, it's okay to be dorky, and I can still be cool and dorky. And I think he was cooler and more attractive to everyone as himself, as that dorky person. I mean, you could tell that his heart was really open, and everyone thought he was cooler as a dork than when he had this hard shell around him of having to be cool. And so I think this idea of telling the truth and having the courage to drop the mask, it opens up the opportunity to be just the most amazing people. So the very thing that we're trying to achieve by being closed and judgmental is the very thing that when we drop the judgment and we create that openness, that's what everybody else can now see about us. It's like it gets in the way instead of, being what we think we want, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it does, and I get this great visual analogy that links back to the story that's told about Michelangelo, and when he was asked about, I hope I got the right artist. When he was asked about how he created the beautiful marble sculpture David, and he said it was there. All I did was take away those things that kept it from being seen. And the reason I love it is I thought about it as you were talking. Is what a great visual for our listeners about this idea that there is this magnificent you lurking amid this clutter of stuff, and it's not about getting anything. It's about paring away the stuff that keeps it from being seen, because it's already there. I mean, I hope that's as powerful for you and listeners as it's just a strong visual of acknowledging you've already got it. Stop covering it up. Drop the stuff that doesn't allow it to be seen. Does that seem apt, all things considered?
Absolutely, and it's a great visual because I think we all have seen the David and recognize how magnificent that is. So to me, Ron, in wrapping up what we've been talking about, to be vulnerable, if we all recognized that we have that masterpiece, that magnificence within us, and that we can be curious and inquisitive and open about discovering that and revealing that, stay out of the judgment, and recognize that it's safe to do this. And if we don't feel that it's safe to do this with the people around us, find some people, coaches, therapists, mentors, whoever it is, find some people where it is safe to tell the truth, drop the mask, and step into appreciating yourself, so that you can actually reveal this magnificence inside. So I think I'm summing up everything we talked about. Was there anything that I missed or anything that you wanted to add to this, Ron? No,
I think that was perfectly summed. Nice job. This was my heart is full. This is a great conversation, Karen. Thank you.
Well, and I just encourage our listeners to take these words of wisdom and practice them somewhere, because there is nothing to me that feels better than loving ourselves and allowing ourselves to be ourselves out there in the world. It's easier, it's more comfortable, there's more energy, and people, maybe the people in our listeners' lives right now who they think are judging them, when you're around the people who are open and loving of themselves, wow, find those people and enjoy being the masterpiece that you are. So thanks for this conversation today, Ron.
Thanks, Karen.